specifically about the center line, I think it's a tool, it's a conceptual tool to define an idiom, right? We have this idiom: the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? So if I have my 2 fingers here, index finger, then the line that connects them, that's the shortest distance, right? Now here's the question. Is that the only pathway between my fingers, right? Actually not, right? You can go up and then down, or forward and back, or zigzag, right? There's almost an infinite number of ways to go between my 2 fingers, right? However, this straight line is useful in that it delineates the shortest distance, right? And why is that important? Well, rate times time equals distance, right? And so if you have the shortest distance, then at a given speed, let's say your maximum speed of punching, right? Then you can traverse that distance in the shortest amount of time, right? And the thing about time too, that's not in that equation, is energy expenditure, right? So obviously, if you are gonna, let's say you exert 200 calories per hour, okay? I mean, that's a long time relative to punching, but let's just use that energy expenditure. So if you can get the job done in half an hour versus 45 minutes, you save energy, right? And in terms of survival as an animal, right? That's very important, right? Now, not so much, because 41% of United States Americans are obese, so I think we have plenty of energy. So in terms of center line, and the way that I'm describing center line now, like you said, there's different interpretations, is relative to the opponent, relative to the target, right? So it's like shooting an arrow, right? An arrow shoots relatively straight. Of course, it has a arcing trajectory. And so this way of considering the center line is very useful, right? And so if the opponent is in front of me, right? If I want to hit them, with the shortest trajectory, then I want to make sure I'm kind of traversing on that line, right? And if they move, right, sort of like a compass needle pointing towards magnetic north, right? So relative to that in this analogy, the opponent is due north, right? So if they move 30 degrees to my right, then that center line then actually deviates towards them, again, to define the shortest distance, right? If they back up, then that shortest distance increases, right? If they come closer, that center line decreases, right? So it's a very dynamic thing. That being said, right, are there situations where we don't want to obsess too much or overly apply the centerline concept as I defined here, right? Again, there's different conceptions. And I would say, yes, in some situations, the shortest distance is not the best, right? And what do I mean by best? That's evaluation, right? Good, better, best. I would say safety, right? Sometimes it's not the most sort of advised to just jump right into the center line as I defined it, right? The shortest distance between you and the opponent. And maybe I want even to define it a little bit further, like which 2 points, right? Your forehead to their forehead, or your belly button to their belly button, right? So there's even that kind of variable now, right? Maybe I can define it as such, right? So maybe shoulder height, right? Your glenohumeral joint here, right? Halfway between, about where the sternal notch is. Why is that height important? Because when you reach out with your upper limb, that's your longest reach, right? If you reach above that line, that plane, or below, then you lose range, right? So if you want to strike, right, reaching out at that shoulder joint level, right, is a good default, right? Because you maximize the tool, in this case, your upper limb, as a striking implement. And so halfway between is a sternal notch. So perhaps my sternal notch to their sternal notch, okay, that's this first version of the center line. Now, I talked about safety. So I like to use a lot of parables or metaphors or even aphorisms. So if we all go to the roof of this building, let's say it's 10 stories tall, right? And, we're enjoying the sunset, right? And it went down. And so we say, oh, let's head down, right? We want to go to happy hour together, right? To celebrate whatever, Christmas Eve or solstice. And so, your friend who is very much about, the shortest distance is best, says, okay, sure, I'll meet you there. And they proceed to go to the ledge of the building. All right. And I see them prepare to jump down. I say, whoa, 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 what are you doing? So, well, the bar is right there. I can see it from this 10-story. It's across the street, right? It's about, let's say, 100 feet away. I don't know, something like that, right? 100, 120 feet away. If I jump from here, that's the most efficient path. And gravity is working with me, right? I can just let go and zoom, right? And so I think, okay, very logical, very rational, very conceptually correct, right? Efficiency, shortest distance, and even this acceleration of G's, right? As you gravitational acceleration as you go down, great, right? So I say I wouldn't advise that, but it's your life. But I love you, bro. So please step back from the ledge, right? What do you mean, right? So it's kind of a funny example. But maybe I let them go, I say, okay, you go ahead that way. I'm going to take a less efficient path, let's say. I'm going to go to the opposite side of the roof where there is a door that I have to open and walk through. And, let's say the elevator, there's no elevator in this building, right? And I have to zigzag all the way down, right? Those flights of stairs, all the way down to get to the bottom flight, bottom floor, and then walk out the front door and go across the street to the bar, right? And let's say that takes me, I don't know, like 15 minutes, depending on how fast I walk, right? Versus my friend, maybe 10 seconds, boom, splat, right? But that's the end of my friend, right? And it would be not so happy hour now. I'll drink a beer for him. Yeah. So it's a funny example, but as you can see, the principle of shortest distance, or even this elevation of, no pun intended, elevation of efficiency above all costs, right? And in this case, it's very costly, right? So in martial arts, let's say, in a self-defense context, you say, oh, the center line is free, the center line is open, right? The lane is open, right? And I'm gonna dive in. I'm gonna go through, right? And so the common scenario that I think people apply this is that then they think, okay, if someone is attacking off the center line, right? Say they're doing like a more round strike, right? So they're attacking in a more arcing off, lateral to the center line. And I think, oh, visually, right, with my tunnel vision upon this center line, oh, there's no one there, right? And so then I decide to strike. Now, most would, again, if you take it very mathematically, sure, sounds good, right? However, there's other variables involved, right? And again, we just can refer back to safety. I would say, okay, if you are 100%, or everyone has a certain risk, different risk aversion, right? If you are 100%, or let's say you would just require an 80 or 90% confidence that you can reach the opponent, let's say you're striking to their throat, before their arcing fist with that, angular momentum hits you, then go for it. Yeah. And I'm not being, facetious here, like go for it. Yeah, it's a good idea. Because then when you strike and you hit their target and their spine falls back, right? And if the spine falls back, the shoulder girdle also falls back. And then the shoulder joint and elbow and fist are connected to the shoulder girdle. So when you impact them, right, that collision is going to shoot back. And so that rounding strike may not be a threat, right? So go for it, yeah. So it depends. Maybe if you're a bit more conservative, let's say, right? And you don't want to take the risk. You're feeling 50-50 or even 60-40. Think you can make it, but you have more doubt. And again, it's very individual. Your own body type, your own nervous system, et cetera, your own expertise and training. You haven't done this sort of scenario very often. If you trained it, 100,000 times and you tested it and it works, 95% confidence, then go for it, right? But if you don't have that experience or whatever reason, right, then maybe it's better to forego striking on the center line for the time being, right? Maybe it would be a better idea to do some sort of defensive strike, right? To stop that stop that arm from hitting your face first, right? So that is not to say then the center line abstraction disappears. It's still there, but safe sort of the safety first. I don't just to use this case study, safety first. That is defense. Make sure you're defensively sort of secure first, right? And offense second, right? And so in this case, then we would again forego and not strike on the center line first. Yeah. So let me pause there and see if there's any feedback on that, and then we can talk about other kind of definitions. That's kind of definition number one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. It's almost like you have to take into account the distance and the timing as well. Like in your example, someone comes with a round strike. You have to make sure you time that pretty well, because I mean, no one's going to strike like a zombie.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
So I mean, yeah, so you have to take the timing into the account. It's almost like crossing the street, right? So
yeah,
there's cars whizzing by,
right.
And yeah, you see that opening. If you're really quick, you can go through,
good.
But you don't want to run into a car.
Yeah,
just by going across the street. So
good example.
Yeah, I totally agree.